Hey everyone, welcome to this week's High Value Publishing session. I'm real excited about this one we have today because it's time for our What's New in Publishing session. We always do this the second week of the year, and I've got my good friend of mine, Jez Walters, who's here joining me today. Jez, you want to pop on your video there? Well, come on in, say hello, and get this show started.
Great to see you, Eric.
Good to see you too. Hey, so we decided since we're recording this on Fridays now that we're going to do, it's 5 o'clock somewhere. We're going to do a little bit of scotch. So cheers to you, Jez. What are you drinking today?
Cheers, Eric. I'm drinking a Glenmorangie. My grandma was Gaelic from that area of Scotland, so for me it's more a question of loyalty. I'm traditionally an Islay man.
Well, so speaking of that, that's what I have today. I have an Islay, an Ardbeg Ugadal.
Yeah,
Ardbeg
fantastic.
Ugadal. Did I pronounce that right?
Yeah, you did. Full of character, heavy peat, fantastic whiskey.
It does have quite a bit of peat. A good some guys I worked with who we rebuilt their site last year sent me this as a thank you, and it's a fantastic bottle. So anyway, we won't get too into that, but we thought we'd go ahead and just do it since this is kind of a fun session we like to do. Um, we got some good stuff this year though this week. Why don't we start with yours?
Yeah, I think the first story I'd like to start with, Eric, is Next Gen News 2, which is a report. It's a free to download report, by the way, from FT Strategies. Now, FT Strategies are the consulting arm of the Financial Times. I know the people there, and they're a smart bunch, let me tell you. So they've done looking at what will the audiences look like in 2030. Now, we're already getting a clue, aren't we, with Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, and short form video on YouTube and things. But they've taken it one step further, and they've released this report. But here's the thing about this report. They make transparency a chapter in the report, which is good. But I don't think they've gone far enough. And that's something that the American Press Institute's Yoni Greenbaum makes clear in a recent Substack that he's put out, that he said for that generation now, transparency is number one, number two, number three. If a publisher just looks at the platforms and meets them where they are, they're missing the point that transparency is vital. And Trusting News, which again is a funded network in America, Lynn Walsh, explains how to do it effectively. So within 1 week, both the American Press Institute and Trusting News, which is kind of an NGO for publishers, really just helping them be more transparent, have come out really promoting this. And I think they've got it right. And I think the FT, as good as they are, FT strategies, I think they've missed the boat a little bit by not emphasizing that it has to be transparency one, two, and three.
For what it's worth, we'll put the link to the FT report in the show notes for anybody who wants to download those. I 100% agree. A lot of stuff I've been reading, and I think we're seeing it in some actual user behavior, is with the proliferation of AI content, and we're seeing it on social media, right? We're seeing AI videos, AI generated text content. We're seeing tons of stuff coming on there. People are looking for authenticity and transparency. They really want. I mean, I even heard on the radio station. There's a talk news radio station here in Colorado, KOA, and I even hear them now on their news programs saying, 100% guaranteed human.
Yeah.
So I think that there is an opportunity for media companies, whether you're in the news, whether you're in magazine publishing, whatever it may happen to be, that transparency, that authenticity is going to be absolutely critical. So it's interesting to see that Financial Times thought the same thing.
Yeah, they did. And the other thing they said is in articles as well, if a publisher is ever making a claim, I mean, news publishers now, to make sure that it's backed up with verifiable facts and to link to them, because
Yes.
that's what they want as well. They will not take you at face value what you say, but if you back it up with links and stats and verifiable information, you're in a much better place with that generation of audience.
What's very interesting is all of the algorithms for Google search optimization, Discover, Google News. Those are the same guidelines. They're like Give us your sources, even link to some of the key sources so you can pitch the graph. So authenticity and transparency it's big all around. It's big for end users. It's big for the search and discover algorithms. It's big all around because there's a ton of junk out there right now.
Absolutely.
That's a good one. My first story was talking about something that's just kind of kicked off recently. That's the February 2026 Google Discover Core update. So if you're not aware of this, Google is rolling out an update right now but unlike their normal search updates, this isn't focusing on traditional search. This is focusing on Google Discover. So hopefully most of my readers and most of your followers also know what Google Discover is. But if you don't, Google Discover is kind of like almost a social media platform, if you would, where it ingests a bunch of content, typically more kind of lifestyle, sports, entertainment content, usually, not always, and then bubbles that up to especially Android users on their device or in the Google app right there. So this is in the Google app. Or in other services. You get some publishers who get some good traffic off of Google Discover on various platforms. So that's what Google Discover is. There's been a proliferation, though, of kind of junk spam content in Discover. So this update is designed to counter that. Their goal is, I think, really twofold. They want to remove the overly sensational clickbaity stories, filter more of those out, deprecate those, and they want to have more locally relevant content. So what you're seeing right now, the early reports are, let's say I'm a publisher in the US, but I'm publishing content about stories in the UK to a UK audience. My stories are going to be less likely to show up in Google Discover than someone who's writing natively in the UK, for example, or vice versa. So that's what's happening right now. It's starting out with the English language, US only. That should be in the next couple of weeks. And then it's going to be expanding to other languages and other geographical locations. I kind of put together, if you're a publisher, what are some action items that you should do? Number one, you need to monitor the Google Discover section of Google Search Console. So if you're not already doing it, let me show you that real quick. Here's a screenshot from one of my clients. By the way, they got 1 million clicks from Google Discover over the last 12 months. And this is not a big news company. This is a very regional niche publisher. But you can see, if you're in Google Search Console, you go down here, Google Discover, and it will show you kind of your results for Google Discover. This particular publisher is actually doing well. And you can see they relaunched their site and they're kicking butt. So they're doing really well. So monitor Google Discover. You want to avoid clickbait and sensational headlines. I know a lot of us do use that. That's not saying you can't have a headline that's intriguing. You can have a headline that's intriguing that doesn't give away the story, but you want to stay away from the clickbait and sensational, right? Like, I've seen like headlines like, this rumored football trade devastates the league, right? Things like devastates, destroys, these really emphatic emotional words are going to be more and more deprecated. The other key insight that kind of came out of this is publishers who just rewrite news or rewrite press releases, they're going to be deprecated. They're gonna lose visibility. Google is rewarding timely and original insights, and then a very couple little interesting points that actually came out in the they updated the actual Google Discover documentation. Where was that here? Here. And again, these links will all be in the show notes. But this is a whole document on Google that talks about, hey, here's what you need to do to get your content to show up well on Discover. As publishers, we should be knowing this stuff inside and out. But two interesting things they said is, your featured image is critical, guys. You've got to have a featured image that's at least 1,200 pixels wide. If you don't, you've got less likelihood of showing up in Google Discover. By the way, I'm always make sure publishers, if you want like a little narrower kind of HDTV, 16 by 9 aspect ratio, then your images should be 1280 by 720, 1280 pixels wide, 720 pixels tall. If you're going more of a DSLR camera ratio, that's I think a 3 by 2, 4 by 3. That's I think 4 by 3, 3 by 2. Yeah, 3 by 2. It's 1200 by 800 pixels. But both of those will fit the featured image in Discover. So make sure you have the right featured image size. And then the last thing I would tell publishers, it's very interesting, but I noticed something in here. I did you see this? Look at this. Especially, images, compelling images are more likely, you can enable this through this setting or by using AMP, accelerated mobile pages. So for everybody who says AMP is dead, I'm telling you right now, AMP is not dead. I see AMP getting used a lot still by Google Discover, by Google News, and by other news aggregators. So anyway, that was my kind of takeaways from the Google 2026 Discover core update. Keep an eye on it. Publishers, look at your Search Console.
No, that's excellent. I've learned a lot from that.
What do you got next?
Right. The next one I've got really is a really good story from this came out of the Midwest actually, but it's about money being quite tight for a lot of publishers, and so news organizations are increasingly collaborating on major stories. So what they're doing is they're joining journalistic forces. So, commentator James Briner, he's teared down the top 10 journalism collaborations of 2025. We can put those in the show notes. And they were published by the Center for Cooperative Media. And there's two aspects of this. What I'd like to do is just draw attention to one of the stories and how it works. So this one was again in Midwest, Kansas. And it's the Kansas Local Journalism Collaboration. And the story was on Wichita housing investigation. So a coalition of 10 organizations, including a number of publishers, they spent part of 2025 pooling their resources to get the real story behind it. And they investigated 20 years of building permit data and found that Wichita is missing 17,000 single family homes. And then they increased and did the story around it. And I would say it's a fantastic example of news organizations who on their own couldn't tackle such a story, pooling their resources together. The end results then they could cut and paste and do their own analysis on it and have the content unique to themselves. But the actual basis of the story was a collaborative effort. So that's something that I wanted to flag. And then it's been augmented by Dale Anglin. Now, Dale Anglin, if you don't know him, is the executive director of Press Forward. Now, who are Press Forward? They're a coalition of 90 funders in the States managing a 500 million investment fund into US local news. Now, he's commented on these collaborations and he said, look, you are a naturally competitive industry. Going forward, that's not what you're going to be able to do. You can't have that attitude. So I think those two pieces together wrapped show that collaboration now is an increasingly important aspect of local publishers in the States pooling their resources, not in a way that cannibalizes and threatens their readers, but actually creates better stories.
I think that's fascinating. You answered one of my key questions I was going to have. You said, okay, so it looks like they're collaborating on the research and the information behind the story, but then they're each kind of writing their own angle on
Yeah.
the story. So there's unique content still coming out of it, and not just creating the same story and publishing it on on multiple sites.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can see in big American cities, you might have, one or two or three local media sites. By collaborating, they can tackle the stories that perhaps on their own it would demand too much resource and take them off a lot of their core stories.
I like that. I think that, no matter what market you're in, whether it's a regional consumer city lifestyle, or it's a regional business, or it's a B2B business trade journal or association publication, or local news, there's always going to be things that you would like to dive into that you're not able to dive into on your own. So I think that the collaborating with perhaps other competitive media outlets, I also think that there's some great collaborations to look at with governmental agencies. There's some
Yeah.
unique collaborations to look like with educational entities. There's
Yeah.
unique collaborations to look like with consultants in those
Yeah.
industries
Yeah.
to dive in a bit deeper and get more information out. Again, creating that deeper, more unique content that can't be just easily summarized in an AI
Absolutely.
generative output. Love it.
Absolutely.
Love it. Um, that's great. So the next one I had was an interesting story that I saw on Digiday. Let's see if we can find it here. Yeah, about AI, basically the death of the traditional homepage. Right. I won't. You can dive into it here. We'll put the link in it again. But they're saying that this is the year that AI will remake publisher websites and reader experiences. Now, I think that's a little overstated because the cost of the technology behind these is still crazy expensive. And I think when you take a look at some more niche publisher sites, they're just not creating enough content. So a lot of these stories that I see out there, they're written with these large news organizations in mind, right? And Digiday happens to be one of those, for example. But I think that it's an interesting take saying that a lot of publishers, like Forbes, Newsweek's, Times, Washington Post, are adding AI tools and features. We're going to talk about that here in a minute, Jez, right? You got a good story on that one.
Yeah.
But now they're saying, let's take that to the next level. And let's say when someone comes into the homepage, maybe the headlines and the content and the organization of the homepage automatically adapts to your individual preferences, past behavior, to things that are happening in the industry, the time of day, things like that. So it's more of they call it a liquid homepage that's developing. I think that's fascinating. I do think though this is a little bit of that bleeding edge kind of thing that I think this is worthwhile keeping an eye on. But if I was a publisher, I wouldn't necessarily be specifically pursuing it, especially more in the niche industries. Because a couple of thoughts. One, most niche publishers just aren't creating like 100 stories a day, right? Or even 20 stories a day. You're creating two, three, four, maybe five, maybe even one a day. You're not creating hundreds of stories to tune it in for specific individuals. The second thing on this, the technology is not cheap. It's expensive. It's not mainstream yet. It will become more mainstream over time, I have no doubt. And the third thing, I think you and I talked about this in the pre-show. I think us as publishers, we think everybody looks at our homepage, right? The homepage, everybody looks at our homepage. It's kind of like the cover of a magazine or the front page of the newspaper that we used to get. The answer is no. I mean, we actually looked at some analytics, and every single one of the clients I work with, their homepage is less than 5% of their total page views.
It's incredible.
So the homepage, for all this focus on the homepage, and every time I work with a publisher and we would do a website relaunch, the homepage is the number one thing they want to focus on. And I keep saying, you know what? Your homepage is the least important page in your website. Your article page is the most important page. And there's lots of things we can do there to increase engagement and get more people to look at more content. By the way, the number one is continuous scroll. We'll talk about that at a later time. So I think this is fascinating. I do think that there will be more and more tuning of content and tuning of content recommendations based upon what we know about individuals. But I think this prediction is a little overblown and overstated and perhaps focused on just the top 1% of large media companies. Anyway, curious if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, I think that's amazing. I mean, 4%. I mean, when we talked in the pre-show about that, if you'd told me 40%, I would have believed you. 4%, I'm staggered. So that's given me food for thought.
Yeah, publishers do not focus your time and energy and efforts on your homepage. I mean, yeah, it's important. It's a perception issue, but it's your article pages. Those are the number one most important page on that. What do you have next?
Right. It's a follow-up really on our Google Discover. We've talked about Google
Oh
Discover
yeah.
a few times, but it's such an important part of revenue streams for many publishers. And this is some research that's come out of Marfield. Now, Marfield are an analytics platform with multiple publishers as clients, so they've pulled their data together, and they found that 51% of Google Discover entries in the US are AI summaries. Now, what does that mean? Essentially, only 23% of these summaries are linking back to publisher content. And ominously, 77% of these summaries are redirecting to YouTube, reinforcing Google's closed ecosystem. Now, on the pre-show, I think we
Mm.
talked about that. What does that mean? And I was saying that really a lot of publishers should perhaps be looking less at Discover as moving forward. Now, you said something very interesting, and you said, I disagree, and that it's more about adapting to these changes. So over to you, Eric.
Oh, well, so I wanted to bring up, you know, Google Discover pops up on a lot of different devices. So I'm sharing my iPhone right now. I'm sharing the Google app, which happens to have Google Discover built into it. So if we look at here, like this first story is the NFL, but if you look at see the X there, if I click this first story, guess where it's coming from? That first story is coming from X.
Yeah.
The second story also coming from X. Even the third story also coming from X. New York Times, here's a New York Times story, right? If I click this, that's also coming from X,
Yeah.
right? So we keep on going down, like here's a YouTube one from Inside Edition. It's YouTube. Here's Reuters from X, another one from X. I mean, so far we've seen almost everything coming from X or YouTube. Here's finally one, Business Insider, Elon Musk. If I click it, it's going right to the article.
Yeah.
So I think what you're seeing here is, I mean, exactly what you said. I think it's fascinating. Marfield brought this to light that more and more of the content that's happening in Discover is coming not from direct publisher websites, but from X and YouTube. So publishers, my recommendation to you off this, and I think this is great, Jez, this is brilliant. I know a lot of media companies, especially news companies, basically boycotted and got off X, right?
Yeah.
Elon Musk was a big picture of that. There were a lot of maybe political differences and issues with that. He also did a lot to change the platform that I think was stupid, but that's beyond the point. But publishers, do not neglect posting to X.
Yeah.
Do not neglect posting your content to X. It is becoming a bigger and bigger issue, especially not just X itself, but through Google Discover. I also do think publishers need to really begin thinking through a video strategy, both on YouTube and frankly, I think on Instagram, Facebook Reels, and on TikTok. That's a whole separate discussion.
Yeah.
Content distribution, content discovery is happening on a lot of places now, and publishers need to adapt to that. And Google Discover is a good one. Now, I still see a lot of publishers who are getting good results on Google Discover, driving traffic back to their website. So I don't think it's not driving it, but it is certainly changing. So, yeah, good point, Jez.
Great.
All
Over to you.
right. This is a kind of a fun one. This is a very small one. It's not like a major story out there. So one of the folks that I follow is I like Simon Owens. If you haven't checked out Simon Owens, check out his Substack. He talks a lot about media companies, but one of the things that he is just a little side note he threw in one of his updates. He's like, "Why does Business Insider hate its subscribers so much?" I thought this was brilliant. He's like, "I'm a paid subscriber to Business Insider. It's gotten to the point wherever I want to read one of the articles, I have to save it to a web app that strips out all the advertising. This is a testament to how abusive ad tech is. Out of all the publications I actually pay for, it does the most to treat its paying customers like shit." I'm like, okay, you know what? This is hitting a pain point for me. I have for years been telling paid publishers who have paid subscriptions, if someone pays you for a paid subscription, provide an ad-free experience on the website and in your email newsletter. If I'm paying you money, especially some of these subscriptions, like in the regional business space, they're like 140, $150 a year. I mean, the big media companies have figured this out. If I'm paying for Netflix, if I'm paying for Spotify, if I'm paying for any of the other big platforms, they will move advertising for the right dollar amount. But I yet to find a single publisher who's willing to remove advertisements and make just a very clean reader experience for paid subscribers. And Simon Owens just called this out with Business Insider big time. And
Yeah,
the funny thing, Jez, is if you were to do that, you might lose 1% of your
yeah,
page views and ad impressions. Big
yeah,
fat whooping Harry do. You've
yeah.
now, yeah, I'd rather have a subscriber pay me, anywhere from 30 to 150 bucks a year. I'll make more money off of that than I ever will off the ad dollars. And I also have
Absolutely.
advertisers where the salespeople will go, oh, but what's the message to our advertisers that our core paid subscribers aren't seeing their ads online? I'm like, we're still fulfilling. We're still giving them all the ad impressions to the right audience in the right geographic area in the right market. It doesn't matter. But I
Yeah,
have yet to find a single paid subscription publisher. They're hemorrhaging paid subscribers. Their churn rates are getting higher.
yeah.
They're charging more money for paid subscriptions. But I've yet to have a single one who will say, you know what? I'm going to give my paid subscriber a better experience. And I don't know why,
Mm.
Jez.
Yeah, no, exactly. No, can't add to that. I think you're absolutely spot on.
I'll get off my my soapbox on that one and have another drink of this Ugadal.
Okay, you ready for the next one, Eric?
Let's go for it.
All right, so this one, there's been some developments this week, but I need to set the scene. I don't know about you, but back in the day, of course, you just had the Google search bar and you just put in a couple of phrases, and then it's up to you to then find the links and actually the content. But now with ChatGPT, Perplexity, and Claude, and everything like that, what we're doing is it's conversational search. So we're going in and we're not only asking where is the best restaurant near me, we're also asking it, what are the dishes, what are the reviews, and we're having a conversation with the search. Now, publishers are recognizing this, and tools are starting to be built whereby publishers on the content within their own website are able to have a conversation with the people interested in that topic. And in the newsletter this week, I did the example of the Daily Express, which is a mid-tier publisher in Britain, about a tool that they've got called Deeper Dive. So if you're, researching, I don't know, it could be Peter Mandelson's resignation from X and Y. You can have a conversation about the background to that, and it will surface more articles and content from within the Express, make it far more stickier experience. Now, yesterday, Taboola have come out and said that Deeper Dive, rather than being a custom built tool by the Daily Express, it's actually part of Taboola. It's integration. And I obviously
Yeah.
tested the tech out and I thought it was excellent.
And that's one of the things I want to make sure that everybody understands. Deeper Dive is an AI tool publishers can put on their website that is built by or acquired by Taboola. So Taboola now owns this. I'll give you just an example here, and it's very interesting. It's like when you want more details into, so it's giving you all this information back into here. I will throw this out here. It's interesting that Taboola is doing this. I want to dive in a little deeper myself and find out what the pricing is. I think that it's ad supported at this point, free for publishers, but ad supported. I also work with another company called Direct. This is Deeper Dive, by the way, and then Direct is this one. And like they have a similar kind of thing, right? So I can ask, what's the latest on the avian flu and how it's impacting the poultry market, right? So some interesting stuff on these tools. I'm real interested to see what some of the numbers are with Deeper Dive. I've seen the numbers on these. You'd think this would be a really cool tool. Surprisingly, I don't see these tools being used that much on publishers. The
Okay,
usage data is not that much.
that's really interesting.
So I think these are cool ways that publishers are integrating AI into their own content. But I still think that the biggest challenge that we have as publishers, our coverage is this big, right? But when you're talking about topics that people are interested in, it's that big.
Yeah.
And so if you're going to use a Google Gemini, if you're going to use a Claude, if you're going to use a Chat GPT, I can ask any question about anything in those systems. I can go to Google search and ask any question about anything and get a generative AI result. And so those become go-to starting points.
Yeah.
I think the big challenge that we as publishers are going to face is how do we position this as the go-to starting point in our industry? Especially because things like this right now, like the meeting place, this is great, but it's limited to meeting places editorial coverage.
Mm.
How do we get this to become the starting place for meat and poultry processing professionals, if you would, or the starting place for this, for their subject, where we can go beyond that so that it really truly becomes the starting place, the vertical search engine, if you would. And what is the unique value proposition of this over what I could get off of Gemini or ChatGPT or Claude or whatever? I think it'll be interesting. I think these are fascinating. I love these ideas. I don't know. For me, the jury's still out. And I think what I'm also seeing is I'm even seeing it here, whether it's on the Express or it's on Meeting Place. I mean, they built it in pretty prominently, but it's still like even here, it's not on their article pages.
It would be very
Oh,
interesting
it's right there.
to talk to Taboola about the test data. Of course, they're going to be skewed and biased, but if we can get accurate data from that, that would give us a little bit more information.
Yeah, it would be. I mean, I actually have first party data on these kinds of integrations with Direct. So I think that it's like if we're going to go into this, we need to go all in, and we really need to make it like the central starting place where it's almost like it's like the homepage. You got this big, hey, here's the key things you should be searching on, and it becomes truly like it's a search engine on the data. So it'll be interesting. I love these kinds of applications of AI, but I'm not quite sure how practical they're going to be yet. So it'll be fascinating to see.
Yeah, very interesting. Excellent. Okay.
So my last story was actually just shared this morning on a media operator, AMO. So another great site. If you guys haven't signed up for it, I would recommend it. But they run a really neat little story about what's driving company valuation, media company valuation out there. And even if you're not in the market to sell your media company, it's always worthwhile to understand what is driving media company valuation, because those are things you should be thinking about as a media operator yourself. And so they're saying, hey, the key three things that are driving this, to just summarize this, are data, subscription, and events. Okay, 100% agreed, but in what way? This is not new, by the way. This has been something that, private equity firms and others have been looking at for years upon years. So this is not new information, but I think it's a fresh perspective on it. The key things are high value subscriptions, right? High value subscriptions that is rather than just regurgitated cheap consumer news, right? Again, if your data isn't proprietary, investors don't want it. Right. So, I'll throw this out for example. If you go over here to Meeting Place, they have a lot of stuff you can get access for free, but then they have this pro stuff, this premium subscriber stuff. That's stuff that's really high end, market analysis that you just cannot get anywhere else. So I thought that was really a unique thing, that if you're going to do a subscription, it's got to be information that people cannot get anywhere else. All
Yeah.
right. Events. Talking about events, I love the concept of events, whether it's local event in the consumer business space or whether it's a B2B space, trade shows, conferences, summits, things like that. Events are something that you utilize your content to build community, and then you bring that community together in events. I have also seen virtual events, but in-person events are something, whether it's even a virtual event or an in-person event, these are things that AI cannot replicate, right? Digital can't replicate that. And that's adding to unique, M&A companies are looking at that as a unique competitive advantage that is very difficult to overcome or for a competitor to step in on. And the last thing is the data. And I'm going to break this into kind of, I don't know how deep they get into it in here, but it's two kinds of data. Is one kind of data is saying, like in industry data, the ability to bring in different kinds of industry data, create searchable and sortable databases, and people will subscribe to those kinds of services, right? There's subscriptions to that kind of data that people will subscribe to. The other kind of data is the first party data, and that's collecting all the data about your individuals, your audience. This is where kind of a CDP, a consumer data platform, whatever you want to call it, is very important. It's saying, how do we aggregate all of not just email data and the emails people are saying, the links they're opening, but the pages on our website they're visiting, the searches they're doing, the ads they're seeing, the ads they're clicking, the things they're downloading. How do we aggregate all the demographics? How do we aggregate all this data and use that in lead generation, especially in the B2B space? So anyway, I thought that was very interesting that as a media company, we need to be looking at, yes, we're creating content that is the foundation, but how can the things that are really going to have value are paid subscriptions to data, services, and content that is not commodity, events, and then other kinds of data that you can create and bring out to and lead gen. So I thought it was fascinating.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating. I think from my side, one thing I'm noticing in Europe is that events are becoming far more competitive. I know a couple of events that are struggling at the moment, and if you even in the States, if you look at Southwest by Southwest, that's been struggling over the last few years. And I think one of the problems is not so much tickets; it's more getting the sponsorship revenue because there's so many events coming out now. So what I would say about events, they have to be another level up. They have to be top tier, a bit like the content. It's got to be something unique.
You nailed it on the head, Jez. It's like if I'm going to spend money to go to an event, if you get the right people at the right event, you'll get the sponsors,
Yeah.
right? But to get the right people at the right event, it's got to be something that the right people are willing to go to that event for and spend money on.
Yeah.
So I think you nailed it on the head, and I think that kind of sums up the whole session rather nicely.
Yeah.
It still comes down to that us as media companies, we have to be creating valuable content that our readers really want and that isn't just commodity. If we do that, we'll be successful in search, we'll be successful in AI, we'll be successful in events, right? It's the foundation to everything. So I love that as a great place to maybe end this
Yeah, that's
session
a
on.
great place to wrap up. I learned a lot there actually from you there, Eric. So thanks again.
No, my pleasure. These are great stories, Jez, so I appreciate it. And if you guys haven't signed up, make sure to go out to What's New in Publishing. Sign up for Jez's newsletter. He keeps up on tons of stories that I can't keep up on. And Jez, we will resume this next month.
Yeah, look forward to seeing you then.
All right, my friend. Cheers.
Bye bye.